Massage brings relief for a few hours, then the heaviness comes back, as if the body had its own memory of suffering. This happens because you're looking for relief where it hurts, when the way out is actually behind you, in the back body, a forgotten territory that holds the key to real release. When this area loses its breathing mobility, the body starts living tilted forward, carrying everything through the shoulders, while the back body never truly rests. Today, you're going to learn a 90-second posterior release that reorganizes your axis without force, restoring breathable space to the back body and taking weight off the upper muscles. There's a reason the trapezius shows up as the culprit, when in reality it's only compensating for something deeper you haven't noticed yet. Leaving this video now means continuing to touch the symptom while the body remains without posterior support, repeating the cycle that brought you here. Transformation begins when you stop massaging the pain and learn how to restore mobility to what actually supports the body. The back body is a territory of primary support, the place where the body is meant to rest when it trusts the support that comes from behind. When this area loses rib mobility and respiratory function, the back of the rib cage collapses and the entire axis projects forward. The body begins to live in a subtle forward lean, as if it were always about to fall, and the shoulders rise, trying to compensate for the absence of support that should come from the back body. This loss is not only mechanical, it's the memory of having stopped trusting that something is holding you from behind. Ancient somatic traditions recognize the back body as an invisible support, the foundation of vertical presence that allowed the body to inhabit space without constant effort. When this region closed, the person began pushing everything on their own, unable to let life support them. Posterior rigidity was understood as a refusal to rest, not as a structural failure. Stiffness in the back ribs prevents the breath from reaching the back body, creating a thoracic collapse that forces the shoulders to rise as an attempt not to give in. Without posterior rib mobility, the trapezius takes on a support role that was never meant to be its job, leading to chronic muscular fatigue. The neck reacts because it's holding an axis that has lost its base, and the sensation of invisible weight appears because the body is truly carrying everything through the front. Research on polyvagal theory and thoracic fascia shows that the nervous system interprets mobility in the back body as a signal of structural safety. When the back of the ribcage regains movement, the body no longer needs to defend itself through the upper muscles. Readiness decreases because real support is present. This doesn't happen through forced relaxation, but through a redistribution of load that the nervous system recognizes as safe. There is someone who lived exactly this pattern, years searching for relief where it hurt. Without realizing, the body was asking for a reorganization of posterior support. This person's story reveals how releasing the back body transforms not just pain, but the entire relationship with support and rest. Monica was 40 years old and worked as a sales associate in a clothing store at the mall, where she spent 8 hours a day on her feet, folding clothes, helping customers, and carrying stock boxes to the sales floor. For 3 years, stiffness between her shoulder blades had settled in as a constant presence, a weight she felt even when she woke up, before any effort. Her neck would start hurting by mid-morning, her shoulders lifted on their own without her noticing, and her breath never seemed to reach deep enough. Monica lived slightly, leaned forward, as if her body were always about to give way and she had to hold herself together to avoid falling. She tried monthly massages that brought relief for a day or two before everything returned exactly as it was. She stretched every night following physical therapy videos online, but the feeling of carrying an invisible weight never changed. She bought orthopedic pillows, changed her mattress, and started Pilates, thinking she needed to strengthen her muscles. but the more she worked her shoulders, the stiffer they became. Each attempt touched the pain without addressing its origin, and Monica began to believe this was part of aging, of working too much, of a body that simply couldn't handle it anymore. One day, during a casual conversation with the manager of the store next door, Monica mentioned the constant pain and the feeling of never being able to fully relax. The manager said she had gone through something similar and that a therapist specialized in gestalt release had completely changed how she felt inside her own body. She wrote the contact down on a napkin and said something that stayed echoing. "She's going to touch your back body, and you're going to realize you've never felt your back breathe." In the first session, the therapist asked Monica to lie face down and began gently pressing the area between her shoulder blades. After a few minutes, she asked a question no one had asked before. "Can you feel your breath reaching back here?" Monica tried, but realized she couldn't. The breath moved up and down through the front of her body, but the back body remained still, rigid, as if it weren't part of the process. The therapist then guided Monica to lie on her back with a foam roller placed lengthwise along the thoracic spine, allowing the weight of the ribs to soften into the support. At first, the body resisted. It felt wrong, uncomfortable, too vulnerable to let go from behind. But little by little, as Monica allowed her back body to rest into the support, something began to soften from the inside. The breath found a pathway where there had been solid blockage before. Her right shoulder dropped on its own, without conscious effort. And for the first time in years, she felt supported by something other than her own effort. What Monica discovered in that moment is exactly what your body is about to experience. Start by testing where the breath fails to reach the back body. Stand or sit upright with the spine tall. If you can reach your back with your hands, place them on your back body just below the shoulder blades, at the level of the middle ribs. If you can't reach, lie on your back on the floor and simply notice which parts of your back touch the surface and which areas remain suspended without contact. Take a deep breath in and try to sense whether the back body expands, whether the back of the rib cage moves, or whether it stays still. Most people discover that the breath travels up the front of the body, filling the chest and lifting the shoulders, while the back body remains static, as if it's not participating. This posterior rib stiffness is what forces the upper muscles to compensate, creating the overload you feel in your shoulders and neck. Now lie on your back on the floor or on a firm mat. Bend your knees and keep your feet grounded, aligned with your hips. Place a foam roller, a tightly rolled towel, or a folded blanket lengthwise along the thoracic spine, starting just below the base of the skull and extending down to the mid-back. The support should be under the spine itself, not directly under the shoulder blades. Allow the weight of your torso to soften onto the support without forcing the chest open. At first, the body may resist. You might feel discomfort, vulnerability, or a sense that it's wrong to let go from behind. Breathe slowly, letting the air move toward the abdomen, and now bring your attention to the back body. With each exhale, allow the weight of the ribs to sink a little more into the support, as if the body were gradually allowing gravity to hold it. Don't push, don't force an opening, simply let the back body yield. You may begin to feel warmth building between the shoulder blades, a subtle pulsing in the thoracic area, or the sensation that something compressed is starting to release from within. This is the fascia letting go of accumulated tension and the ribs regaining a range of movement that may have been blocked for months or even years. Stay in this position for 2 to 3 minutes. If you notice light dizziness, spontaneous yawning, or the breath becoming deeper without conscious effort, these are responses from the nervous system recognizing that the back body has returned to its role in support. When the back of the rib cage regains mobility, the body reads this as a signal of structural safety and automatically reduces the readiness of the upper muscles. The shoulders may drop on their own, the neck may soften, the jaw may relax. These changes happen through a real redistribution of function, not through mental control or forced relaxation. While still lying down with the support under your back body, raise your arms overhead, reaching them toward the ceiling with your palms facing each other. Keep your elbows slightly bent without locking the joints. Inhale, allowing the ribs to expand to the sides and especially toward the back, feeling the back body press into the roller. As you exhale, let your shoulders rest down toward the floor, moving away from your ears. Repeat this breathing cycle 5 times, noticing how the breath now finds a posterior pathway that didn't exist before. You are restoring the back body's ability to support the vertical axis, taking away from the shoulders the compensatory role they assumed when there was no other option. If you have pronounced kyphosis or very intense rigidity in the thoracic region, use a lower support, a thin folded towel instead of a high roller. If you have hypermobility or joint instability, keep the support firm and avoid forcing excessive range of motion. If lifting the arms overhead creates discomfort or compresses the shoulders, keep your arms alongside the body or resting over the abdomen while you breathe. The goal is not to create a dramatic chest opening, but to restore functional mobility to the back ribs so the back body can return to participating in breathing and postural support. Transformation happens in successive layers, not all at once. If on the first day you feel only a slight softening or a slightly deeper breath, that is already a real shift in the body's pattern. Before moving on to the second part of the practice, there is something essential about what happened to Monica after her back body began to soften. In the weeks following that first session, Monica repeated the posterior release every day. She lay with the roller under her thoracic spine for 3 minutes before going to sleep and again upon waking, allowing the weight of her ribs to soften into the support. The transformation didn't arrive as a sudden, dramatic relief, but as a gradual and sustained redistribution of load. Her shoulders stopped lifting automatically during work hours because the back body had returned to offering real support to the axis. Her breath began to expand backward without conscious effort. The stiffness between her shoulder blades, which had once felt constant and unchanging, started showing up only on days of extreme overload, and when it did, she knew exactly what to do to reverse it. Monica realized something that completely changed how she understood her pain. She never had a shoulder problem. She had a lack of posterior support. When the back body regained respiratory mobility and its supporting function, the trapezius no longer needed to compensate for rib rigidity. The pain that used to return systematically a few hours after massages disappeared because the real cause was addressed, not just the surface symptom. Monica could work 8 hours on her feet without accumulating the same progressive postural fatigue. Her sleep became deeper and more restorative. A completely new physical sensation emerged, the feeling of being supported by something greater than her own conscious, muscular effort. What Monica felt over those weeks of daily practice is exactly what is beginning to happen in your body now. The back body returning to its role in vertical support, the shoulders no longer carrying alone a function that was never meant to be theirs, and the breath finding a real posterior pathway where solid blockage once existed. Now you're going to integrate scapular movement into the back body you've just released. Remove the roller and stand with your back facing a wall about 1/2 meter away. Lean slightly backward until your shoulder blades make contact with the wall, while keeping the lower back and mid-back gently away from it. Slide your arms up the wall, raising them overhead slowly and with control, as if you were drawing a wide arc. Pay close attention to how the shoulder blades move along the wall. They should glide smoothly without the shoulders lifting toward the ears. If you notice the trapezius being recruited too much, meaning the shoulders start rising along with the arms, pause halfway through the movement and exhale deeply, allowing the shoulders to drop before continuing upward. If lifting the arms overhead causes pain or compression, raise them only to shoulder height or keep them lower, focusing on the glide of the shoulder blades along the wall. Repeat this movement 5 times with full attention on the quality of scapular glide. The goal here is not isolated strengthening, but re-educating the movement track of the scapula, teaching the shoulder to move within the range the back body now provides, without the posterior rib rigidity that was present before. The scapula regains functional freedom, and the trapezius no longer needs to take on support as a primary compensatory strategy. You can also perform this reintegration using a light resistance band. Hold the band with both hands in front of your body at chest height, arms extended. Keep the elbows slightly bent and pull the band outward, opening the arms as the shoulder blades draw toward each other in the back body. The muscle activation should occur between the shoulder blades in the back body, not in the neck or the upper shoulders. If you feel tension rising into the trapezius or toward the base of the skull, reduce the resistance of the band or decrease the range of motion. What matters is not the amount of force applied, but the precision of muscle recruitment and the clarity of the movement pattern. The rib mobility you restored in the first part of the practice created the structural base needed for this mechanical reorganization of the shoulder. Releasing the back body allowed the scapula to return to its correct anatomical track. And now the shoulder can move without excessive compensation from the upper muscles. This is not isolated strengthening of a single area. It is functional integration of a support chain. The body is relearning how to distribute load so the back body supports the axis, the scapulae move freely, and the shoulders stop carrying alone what was always meant to be the role of an entire posterior chain. The full sequence, testing posterior expansion, decompressing the back body with support, and guided scapular reintegration is now complete. The body carries the physical experience of restored support, and what comes next is sealing this transformation so it remains integrated over the coming days. The physical marker that the transformation has occurred is the breath now reaching the back body without conscious effort. Lie on your back on the floor and inhale slowly, noticing how the back of the rib cage presses into the surface. If you feel this contact expanding backward, a movement that didn't exist before, the body has confirmed the change. The shoulders rest in a lower position without you actively commanding them to drop. This is the sign that the back body has resumed its support function, and the upper muscles are no longer compensating on their own. To anchor this state whenever you need to reconnect with posterior support, use the signal gesture of guided dorsal breathing. Place one hand on the sternum at the center of the chest and allow 3 full breaths while focusing on the expansion happening behind the body, feeling the air reach the back without forcing it. Repeat this for 40 seconds, whether standing, sitting, or lying down. It can be done discreetly in any context, at work, in traffic, or before sleep. When you feel stiffness between the shoulder blades returning, or notice the shoulders starting to rise again, lie down with a support under the back body for 2 minutes, allowing the ribs to soften into the surface. Breathe slowly, directing the air backward, and internally repeat as you exhale, "The support is behind me. I don't need to hold myself from the front." Then perform a brief scapular reintegration at the wall, sliding the arms up and down 3 times with attention on the movement of the shoulder blades. The seal is complete. The body now carries knowledge that once lived only as an idea. The way out was never where it hurt, but in the support you've learned to restore. You now carry, in your back body, the lived experience of being supported from behind, not only from the front. The breath has found a forgotten territory, the shoulders have released a role that was never meant to be theirs, and there is space where constant compression once lived. This shift didn't happen through forced relaxation, but through a real redistribution of load that the nervous system recognizes as safe. The body has returned to trusting that something holds it from behind, and that trust shows up as a structural lightness that once seemed impossible. This release is an entry point into a broader somatic reorganization. There are other regions of the body that hold the memory of lost support, other pathways of support waiting to be recognized. Each area that regains mobility and function returns to the body the ability to inhabit space without excessive effort, to rest where real support exists. The journey of reconnecting with posterior support doesn't end here. It deepens as you begin to notice how many layers of compensation were built over the years. The structural therapist, Ida Rolf, spent decades investigating how the body organizes itself in relation to gravity and left an observation that perfectly captures what just happened in your back body. She said, "When the body is working appropriately, the force of gravity can flow through it. Then, spontaneously, the body heals." A breathing back body is exactly that. The body allowing gravity to support it instead of fighting against it, stopping the search for relief at the point of pain and discovering that the way out is restored. Support frees the energy that was being spent on compensation and redirects it toward real regeneration. A back body that regains respiratory mobility and its supporting function aligns the body with the way consciousness was designed to inhabit matter, supported by something greater than individual effort. The posterior support you now feel is the physical experience of trusting in the support of the source, allowing the body to rest on a true foundation instead of holding itself up from the front. If this content gave your body back something you didn't even know was missing, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share it with someone who keeps massaging the pain without realizing the way out is behind them. This gesture allows more people to access knowledge that transforms symptoms into real reorganization. I want to know how your back body responded to this release. Write in the comments, "I release my back body and find the way out behind me." Declaring this transformation publicly anchors the lived experience in both body and awareness, creating a commitment to a new pattern of support. If you want to keep exploring how the body holds keys to release in forgotten territories, there's another piece of content available to deepen this journey. Click the video appearing on the screen. Pain was always an inverted map, pointing to where you were looking, while the real way out waited behind you in the back body. The territory you never touched because you learned that relief only comes from the front.